All right, I'm going to call to order the governing board meeting of the St. Johns River Water Management District. Today is May 12th, 2026, and it's a little after 10 a.m. in the morning. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to proceed with roll call. Vice Chair Miriam Galby White.
Here, sir.
Cole Oliver.
Present, sir.
Chris Peterson.
Here, sir.
Ryan Atwood.
Here, sir.
Doug Bornick.
Here, sir.
Doug Burnett.
Here, sir.
Ron House.
Here, sir.
Janet Price. And my name is Rob Bradley. I am obviously present and chair of the governing board. Welcome everybody today. We're going to start, as we always do, with Robin Hudson, who is going to share with us milestones for our wonderful staff.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Robin Hudson, Human Resources Director. Our first award is Employee of the Month, and we would like to congratulate Jacob Williams, the May Employee of the Month. Jacob is recognized for his professionalism, strong work ethic, and contributions to the success of the Artesian Well Plugging Program. Jacob has built strong working relationships with district staff, team members, well abandonment contractors, and property owners. He takes a collaborative approach to his work, creating an environment where issues can be addressed openly and solutions developed effectively. Jacobs is results-oriented, takes ownership of his projects, and consistently delivers high-quality outcomes. Jacob contributed to a record-breaking month when in April, a remarkable 31 wells were abandoned. Thank you, Jacob, and congratulations.
Absolutely. We just did.
A 5-year service award for Sydney Johantis, Regulatory Scientist 1, in the Division of Regulatory Services. A 5-year service award for Riley Thames, Environmental Scientist 4, in the Bureau of Environmental Sciences. A 10-year service award for Laney Cisco, Engineer Scientist Program Manager in the Bureau of Water Use Regulation. Laney is a technical program manager for the Groundwater Modeling Group in the Division of Water Supply Planning and Assessment. This group is responsible for developing tools that are the cornerstone of many water supply planning and consumptive use permitting decisions. Laney demonstrates a strong blend of technical expertise, leadership, collaborative skills that significantly support groundwater management decision-making. Laney provides extraordinary leadership of the groundwater modeling team by guiding complex technical work from development through implementation and application. Some examples include the Central Springs Model, North Florida Southeast Georgia Model, and the Transient Expanded Groundwater Model. Laney received an Employee of the Month award for her unique collaborative and technical skills. Thank you for your dedicated service to the district. A 25-year service award for Lori McLeod, Supervising Environmental Scientist in the Bureau of Environmental Sciences. Lori is an exceptional leader whose impact elevates both her team and the agency. Lori has successfully led high-profile initiatives, including the Harmful Algal Bloom Response Team, delivering innovative solutions through complex multi-agency collaboration. Her technical expertise, strategic thinking, and problem-solving abilities consistently produce outstanding results. Lori is equally recognized for her leadership and character. She inspires and develops her team, fosters collaboration, and navigates challenges with professionalism, integrity, and confidence. Whether managing critical projects like SAV monitoring or mentoring staff, she leads with purpose and dedication. She is truly an asset to the district. Thank you for your service to the district. A 25-year service award for Scott Tilton, Facilities Program Manager in the Bureau of Transportation and Facilities. Scott manages the district's facilities team across multiple operational sites while managing maintenance activities and overseeing critical capital improvement projects. His work ensures the district's facilities remain safe, functional, and efficient, allowing staff to focus on serving the public. Throughout his career, Scott has made lasting contributions to the district. He successfully implemented a preventative maintenance program that promotes operational continuity across our facilities, and he has overseen the completion of numerous capital improvement projects. Scott is widely recognized as a subject matter expert in district facilities and mechanical infrastructure. His knowledge and experience are frequently sought in discussions involving capital projects, procurement, planning, and implementation. Beyond his technical skill, Scott is known for his positive demeanor, strong work ethic, and unwavering commitment to operational excellence. Thank you, Scott, and congratulations on 25 years of service to the district.
Congratulations to you all on these impressive milestones. And if y'all want to take a moment to, if anybody wants to go back to wherever they are working right now, or you can stay, either way. Either way works for us. All right, next up is our hydrologic conditions report. It's obviously been continuing to be very concerning. We're seeing some of the results of the dry conditions manifest itself in some very dangerous situations. So we're going to get a report on that and other matters right now. You're recognized. Tim?
Good morning, thank you. Yeah, good morning, Chairman Bradley, members of the Governing Board. I'm Tim Miller, Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Water Resource Information, presenting the May Hydrologic Conditions Report representing data from the month of April. And this month, additional information on the district response to wildfires in Florida and a water shortage update will be included at the end of the report. Those items will be presented by Chris Kinslow and Clay Corsi, respectively. Beginning first with precipitation in April, the rainfall average across the district was below normal for the 6th consecutive month. 13 counties were below their averages, and spatial distribution differed from historical norms, where typically rainfall to the north is higher. As you can see on the map, precipitation was elevated along the central coast, and the majority of rain fell in the southern portion of the district. Rainfall extremes observed in April ranged from less than 1/4 of an inch in parts of Alachua and Baker County to over 10 inches in a small area of southern Brevard County. The majority of rain arrived before mid-month, followed by mostly dry conditions for the second half of April. The average total across the district was 0.55 inches below the district-wide monthly average of 2.6 inches. Here are the monthly rain data displayed as averages across counties, along with the associated monthly rain data table. As mentioned, 13 counties were below their April averages, and 4 of those counties were more than 2 inches below normal for the month. Countywide average rainfall totals ranged from a high of 4.55 inches for Indian River County to a low of just over half an inch for Alachua County. On average, rainfall in April is about 2 inches less than typical rate of evapotranspiration as daylight and temperatures increase at this time of the year, and May is similar. So even with normal rain amounts, we usually experience a drying trend, and that trend's heightened when we get less than normal rain, especially for consecutive months. Looking at rainfall over the past 12 months, the district-wide annual rainfall total was 6.91 inches below the annual average of just over 51 inches. Rainfall has been higher in Volusia, northern Brevard, and portions of nearby counties through the year, and 5 counties were above normal. In contrast, parts of counties to the west and northwest have large areas which have received below 35 inches. 13 counties were below their 12-month rainfall average, with 7 counties recording deficits of more than 14 inches. Of those, Alachua and Bradford counties were more than 19 inches below normal, while Baker County was more than 22 inches below normal. Countywide annual totals range from the highest value of 55.32 inches for Volusia County to the lowest value of just over 30 inches for Bradford County. Updated weekly, this is the most recently published U.S. Drought Monitor assessment. As of May 5th, over 80% of the state was classified as being in extreme drought, which is the bright red color, which included much of the district. Statewide, that is the highest percentage of land area in extreme drought since the Drought Monitor began in 2000. We do continue to have a small portion of counties in the south central part of the district with a lower classification of moderate drought, while the remainder of the district was classified as severe, extreme, or in some cases exceptional drought. The National Weather Service short-term forecast indicates chances for near normal rainfall, but the drought outlook calls for little change in conditions, remaining dry as temperatures in May climb and typically evapotranspiration outpaces rainfall amounts. Looking further out, the NOAA seasonal precipitation outlook through July predicts chances for above normal rainfall and possible improvement in the level of drought, although drought is expected to persist. To provide some perspective on how much rain it would take to see a significant improvement from current drought conditions, here are some predictive data from NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information based on conditions as of May 8th. With the state broken into 7 separate climate divisions, these values represent the amount of rainfall it would take in the next 3 months to improve drought conditions, with that improvement being to moderate or abnormally dry classifications. So relative to normal rainfall, this means we would need to exceed our average rainfall by nearly 30% in some areas for the next 3 months to see significant improvement. To have a complete end to the drought in 3 months, these values would require an additional 5 inches of rain, which could be up to 1.5 times our normal rainfall during this time. The Keach-Byram Drought Index map is updated on a daily basis and designed specifically to assess for wildfire potential. Shown here are the data from May 10th, and within the district, 16 counties had values of 500 or higher, as signified by the yellow, orange, or red coloring. And the remaining 2 counties, Flagler and Indian River, had index values near 400. As of yesterday, county enacted burn bans were in place for 14 counties in the district. Only Okeechobee and the coastal counties of Flagler, Volusia, and Indian River County did not have bans in place. Moving on to surface flows, here are the monthly mean surface flows as compared to historical statistics through April. Surface flows ranged from very low to high. Changes in flow percentiles from last month included increases along the southern St. Johns River and decreases for west and northern tributaries. Flow remained in the normal range for southern St. Johns River stations, with the exception of the station near Cocoa, which was just over the 75th percentile, placing it in the high range for this time of year. The Econ River moved into the low range, while stations on the Ocklawaha and Wekiva remained in the low range. The St. Mary's River to the north continued to have extremely low flows and was in the very low range, along with the tidally influenced station at Jacksonville, which experienced negative flows due to strong onshore winds through the month, combined with low upstream volumes, which is not uncommon at this time of year. In the next series of slides, we'll review the status of water levels at selected long-term lake sites. And looking first at Lake Brooklyn, the water level decreased by just over a foot from the previous month, with levels below average for this time of year. In April, Lake Weir recorded a decrease of 0.3 of a foot and was above the average water level. Water level at Lake Winnimisset also had a decrease of 0.3 of a foot and was above the average level for this time of year. Lake Apopka's level decreased 0.2 of a foot from the previous month, and it remained above its average level but below regulation schedule. And at Blue Cypress Lake, although you can see an increase in water level in the first part of the month due to rain, overall through the month of April, water level had a decrease of 0.1 of a foot. Levels at the end of the month were below regulation schedule and just above the average water level. Across the upper Floridan aquifer, water levels decreased at most sites in April. Approximately 80% of stations were below the normal range. Areas of low levels expanded in central counties, as did areas of very low levels in central and northern counties through the month. Continued lack of rainfall increases the impact that groundwater use has on aquifer levels. As indicated on the map by the red triangles, 13 sites recorded decreases of 10 or more percentile points. Our water shortage team continues to evaluate data and assess drought conditions, particularly as low and very low aquifer levels expand. They're focused on monitoring areas most impacted and providing guidance for conservation and associated messaging, as well as monitoring areas of the district that remain in the normal range. As mentioned earlier, Clay Corsi, Director of Water Supply Planning and Assessment, will provide an update regarding the water shortage declaration at the end of this presentation. Looking now at the district-wide index value for aquifer conditions, the Upper Floridan Aquifer Well Index value at the end of April was 22, placing it in the low range. As a district-wide indicator, with representative wells from across the district shown as a single value, the index value is limited in its summary of conditions when high regional differences exist, like we see now, as the north and western and higher levels of drought than southern counties. And with an index value just below normal range, dry conditions for the majority of the district increase the importance of water conservation. In the next series of slides, I review changes in flow at selected spring sites with long-term monitoring. And the monthly mean for flow in Silver Springs decreased 23 cubic feet per second from the previous monthly mean. Flow is in the low range for this time of year, reflective of low rain recorded in this spring shed in the recent months. At Blue Spring, an increase of 2 cubic feet per second was recorded for the monthly mean, and flow was in the normal range. At Rock Springs, flow decreased slightly from the previous monthly mean and continues to be in the normal range. And a slight decrease in flow was also observed in the monthly mean at Wekiwa Springs. Flow continues to be in the normal range for this time of the year. In April, as Robin mentioned earlier, for Jacob's Employee of the Month award, the well plugging program abandoned 31 wells, which was the greatest number of wells plugged in 1 month since the start of this program. And the estimated potential flow conserved from these abandonments was just over 2.3 million gallons per day. And the program has conserved an estimated potential flow of over 107 million gallons of water per day since November 2020. Here's the fire dashboard updated through April, provided by Land Resources. And although prescribed burn opportunities were limited in April, staff were able to burn 71 acres at Sand Lakes Conservation Area in Indian River County and 178 acres at Hal Scott Regional Preserve and Park in Orange County. Burn bans in April expanded from the previous month and weather conditions were challenging. 3 wildfires totaling 478 acres in April occurred on district lands. The details of these 3 fires, as well as others not on district lands that the Florida Forest Service requested our assistance with, will be presented by Chris Kinslow momentarily. And the total area burned this fiscal year is nearing 3,000 acres. This concludes my portion of the presentation. And if there are any questions, I can pause now for those, or we can move on to Chris and then Clay after that.
Any questions at this point? We can ask questions at any time and later as well. But for now, Doug, you're recognized.
I've been reading a lot about and looking at the super El Nino that's developing in the Pacific. And what do you see that, and how do you see that impacting our weather?
Well, the timeline that they're giving that is to be developing into late July, August, September, and then continuing on to winter months. So usually with that, you see a reduction in the development of tropical storms. It doesn't mean that the impact would be lessened if we do get ones that form. I think I'd mentioned last month about Hurricane Andrew. That was during a fairly strong El Nino year. And obviously that ramped up high and came on shore and caused devastation. But so we would have limited chances or more limited chances for development of tropical storms. However, as you get into the winter, then you end up with a wetter winter typically. So we might see more rain as we go into late fall and into the wintertime.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're recognized.
I'd just like to say congratulations on the well plugging milestone. That's wonderful news. I'm just curious if they were centralized in any one part of the district or more widespread?
The majority of the efforts that are for the well plugging program are happening more towards the southern portion of the district, and that's where the aquifer is for the potentiometric surface. You end up having flowing wells in those locations more typically. So we'll have wells that need to be abandoned in those locations where we've got wells that are either leaking or have failed, and so that's where we usually get the calls at for those.
On the well plugging program, I noticed that we're now at 107 million gallons per day since we ramped it up in 2020, which is a wonderful thing. Could we, in our presentations going forward, each month sort of make that number a little more real in terms of compare it to that's how much the city of X uses?
Yeah.
Or and kind of do something different every month, but just sort of give a sense for the board and for the public exactly the impact of that program on things. And then also, if we could not only do it in comparison to how much a particular utility uses water, but also some of the projects that we pay for with millions and millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions, how much they're saving alternative water supply, so we can get a sense of how much we pay for doing these types of savings in the world. And anyway, That would be, I think, provide more education on the, in context for that data.
Sure. Yeah, the added
Thank you.
perspective would be helpful. Sure.
All right, you're, is there, I believe there's
Yes,
more.
Chris is coming next, and then Clay.
All right, yes. Hi, Chris.
Good morning, Chairman Bradley and members of the board. My name is Chris Kinslow. I'm a land resource planner with the Bureau of Land Resources, as well as the district's emergency coordinating officer. The district assisted the Florida Forest Service with numerous wildfires in north and central Florida in the latter half of April and into May. In addition to normal wildfires response between the district and Florida Forest Service on wildfires on district managed lands, the district and the Florida Forest Service have an intergovernmental cooperative agreement that allows the district to assist Florida Forest Service on lands not owned by the district. This is allowed under the leadership of Florida Forest Service personnel and as the Florida Forest Service is the legislatively empowered agency that, sorry, I meant to advance the slide here. Is a legislatively empowered agency that fights wildfires in Florida. This agreement certainly came into play this past month. The following slides provide information on 8 fires that the district and Florida Forest Service have worked together on from April 15th to today. We will begin with fires entirely on district lands, which are denoted with stars on that map, and then followed by fires that partially affected district lands, and then private lands fires that the Florida Forest Service requested our assistance on. The Diamondback Fire burned over 2 days in a remote river marsh on Seminole Ranch Conservation Area near the Brevard and Orange County line. The fire was extinguished using bucket drops from Army National Guard helicopters under the direction of the Florida Forest Service. This image is not of this particular wildfire, but of a 2020 wildfire in a similar area, showing kind of the broken nature of fires in marshes, where it finds pockets to burn and is stopped by other airboat trails, game trails, things like that. No district staff were allocated to this fire, though assistance was offered. The largest wildfire in district lands currently is the Lochloosa West wildfire at the Lochloosa Wildlife Conservation Area in Alachua County. It began on the afternoon of May the 4th, and Regional Bureau of Land Resources staff responded to the initial attack of the fire and continued to provide local knowledge to the dozens of Florida Forest Service crews that responded to this fire. 3 helicopters, 2 of which being Army National Guard helicopters and 1 Florida Forest Service contract helicopter, conducted bucket drops on the initial attack phase of this fire. A strategic burnout was conducted on the evening of May 5th, expanding the acreage but increasing the likelihood of the containment and control lines holding, essentially fighting fire with fire. Of note, the Florida Forest Service staff on site indicated that they would not have done that burnout had the prescribed fire history surrounding the wildfire area been not so good. All the area around it had been burned within the past 2 to 4 years, allowing for easy access if there was an issue beyond the wildfire footprint itself. This fire continues to be staffed, and between 5 and 10 staff and equipment were allocated to this fire at any given time. As of yesterday afternoon, containment has now been bumped up to 85%.
Do we know what caused it?
We do not. It's under investigation. Likely lightning from that storm of the weekend of, like the May 2nd to 3rd storm. A lot of times they'll hold over for a couple days, and then when drying conditions occur and windier conditions post-front, they'll pop out, but they still haven't found the tree, the lightning strike tree. So still under investigation.
Mention what we know about the cause of these fires.
Sure.
In your presentation, that would be great.
By and large, it's still under investigation, and it's outside of the district scope, but from what we know, almost all of them are human caused aside from that last fire.
Human caused?
Human caused. So a variety of causes generally. Dragging chains on a trailer, potentially sparks from a railroad. So, but the classic caveat of still under investigation.
Yeah, I know the railroad one
Yeah,
because they're pointing fingers at each other
yeah,
and all that.
absolutely.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. The first fire that began affecting the district was on the afternoon of April 15th in Alachua County. The State Road 26 fire grew rapidly to over 300 acres, with approximately 40 acres on the Hatchet Creek tract of the Nunes Lake Conservation Area. That's outlined in that red in the northwestern corner up there. Between 4 and 6 district staff and equipment were assisted the Florida Forest Service for about a week on this fire, and there are no longer any district staff assigned to this fire. Here's the aforementioned railroad fire. Extremely challenging weather conditions on the afternoon of April 19th led to multiple fires in Florida and Georgia. A complex of fires in Clay and Putnam counties became the 4,789 acre railroad fire. District staff were mopping up at the nearby Milliken Road fire when they were rerouted to this fire to do initial attack near Bostwick. Crews worked into the following morning and continued to assist with structure protection, containment, and mop-up until April 25th. Between 6 and 12 staff were assigned to this fire at any given time. Approximately 7 acres of the J.P. Hall Bayard Point Conservation Area were affected by this fire, and that's that small blue rectangle right there. There are no longer any district staff assigned to this fire. This is the list of the private lands fires that the district was requested assistance from, or the Florida Forest requested assistance from the district on. They vary in size. That Mondex fire is actually just a little bit south of here, now 600 acres. In, again, Putnam County, Clay County, Lake County. There's one currently burning in Brevard County, just north of Buck Lake, that we're assisting with a marsh master and a couple staff on private lands. All these, aside from that one I just mentioned, that's the Break 10 fire. No district staff are currently assigned to any of these fires. Looking forward, if you will, these are some outlooks that are produced by the National Interagency Fire Center out of Boise that show the potential for significant wildfires. Significant wildfires being a wildfire that lasts beyond 24 hours, a common operational period, and that will need additional resources for containment and control. So May does not look very good. Above normal, we're already kind of in it. And that's in addition to normal for May is already pretty active. Our wildfire peak is April, May, and June. So that's above already high, a busy season. And continuing into June, we're looking about the same. I'll leave you with some additional pictures from the railroad fire and the Lockalusa fire. So the picture on the left is almost at 10 o'clock, and we were seeing fire behavior activity that was not normal for that late at night. A front passed overnight that night, so the winds continued to shift throughout the day, and humidities dropped into the evening, which is usually when the sun goes down, your humidities go up because things get cooler. The middle picture is us just after initial attack along, that's Tocoa Road, but you can see that column building in the distance, and so we were wrapping up and repositioning. And on the left-hand side is a good example of some interagency cooperation. That's Putnam County. Cooperation between many different agencies on all these fires is key, and especially as you're trying to solve that logistical puzzle of accessing the fire and making sure you have resources. We're filling up off a tender in that picture. And then for Lockalusa, the larger fire and the one in the lower right-hand side are both from the strategic burnout operation that we conducted. And the upper left-hand fire or picture shows the significant amount of organic material that was removed by this wildfire. So those are probably 80-year-old slash pines that moved into the edge of Watson Prairie probably about 80 years ago, and subsequently grew, developed a lot of organic matter around them, and then subsequently, after that fire went through, that's about 2 feet of what we call duff that burned away in 24 hours. And that's, again, not normal and very indicative of the conditions that Tim was describing.
So what happens, the top right corner?
Yes, sir.
Where the, what'd you call it, duff?
Duff, yes, sir.
Was, I guess, burned away.
Burned away.
do these, what happens from here? What does nature do here? Does it replace that and those trees survive, or what?
Those trees likely will die, and likely will fall over. Some of it owes to maybe those trees weren't, because it's on the edge of a prairie, so edge of a wetland. Slash pine are kind of in between species. They can live in wetter uplands, but also kind of into the wetlands. These trees may not have been there, 100 years ago when the water levels were higher, when they could have moved in during a drought. So it's a strange paradox sometimes where you might see changes that.
Why do they die?
Why did they die? It's essentially all those, there's feeder roots that are it's fine roots, aside from the obvious roots that you see. They spread into the duff. And when it rains, the duff is like a sponge. So it's really easy for those feeder roots to go in. They absorb nutrients from, it's like peat moss or potting soil. It's nutrient rich, and it stays wet for them to uptake water and nutrients.
So they lose that source of water and
Exactly,
nutrients
exactly.
because of the duff is gone,
Because-
because it was burned off, and that's why they die?
That's exactly it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking a pretty good question.
Anyone? Yes, go ahead.
I'm a big advocate of controlled burns,
Yes,
as you
sir.
know. Do you ever find yourself with a burn that you sit with a group to discuss, maybe it's better to let her burn? And this area has so much fuel underneath, we need to get rid of it anyway.
Right.
Do you ever have that kind of flexibility?
So it depends. So this case, yes, and that's one of the reasons why
Right.
that strategic burnout. There's good fuel conditions around it. Actually, the area aside from the prairie had been burned pretty recently as well. So to be able to, sometimes it's called making the box bigger.
Right.
There's opportunities to do that. I
Good.
think the biggest constraint that we have is smoke management compared to I'm in my 40s, but I also remember going across Florida when I was going to Vero from Tampa and seeing, ranches burn, and it just seemed to be kind of just, fire was just happening. And so now our biggest constraint, and we've talked about this in prescribed fire council meetings and things like that, is smoke, because that's the most irritant pollutant. So that's the biggest thing we plan for prescribed fires, and also it translates to wildfire operations. When we can, fire use is a term. The scale's different sometimes. Out west, they'll do fire use or utilize a wildfire for management objectives. Sometimes our scales are a little different, where they're working at hundreds of thousands of acres, where ours is a little bit more fragmented. 10,000 acres is kind of a larger conservation area, for at least in the woods side. The marshes are a little bit bigger, so there's definitely flexibility down there. I know we've done it down there, like Three Forks and stuff like
Yeah.
that,
Right.
where they'll end up making the box bigger and burning out to the levees.
The downside of pausing or stopping is the next time there's a fire, it's even worse.
The fuel's still there.
And all you need to do is call DOT and say, need to close down Route 7, visibility issues, but we gotta you gotta do it.
Yeah.
You know, there's just no way around it. Florida is everything grows here.
I know, all
Fast.
the time. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I've worked with all those agencies when I worked for the Sugarcane League out of grad school, being their director of environmental affairs, and we went at it hard because we knew if we paused the next year, that underbrush is going to be 12 feet high rather than 6 feet high. So you got to get after it in Florida.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just got to stay after it.
So-
So I like your flexibility. I think that's great, and be as flexible as you can.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is also deferred to Florida Forest Service
Sure.
and their judgment. 'Cause
They're
that is-
generally pretty good.
They are.
You
We
know?
have a very good relationship.
Yeah.
And the unique part about that is they help us a lot with prescribed fires. So we know each other during the off season, or like
Sure.
the calmer times. So when things are difficult, you already have a friend,
Yeah.
like someone that you know.
Exactly.
So I'm proud of
Yeah.
of Brian and all our staff
Yeah, you got a great staff here.
to kind of cultivate those.
Yep.
Thank you.
Janet, you're recognized.
Thank you.
Did you want-
So as bad as all this is, it will pass and we will
Right.
get back to normal. At some time, though, in your presentation, I'd be interested to know what your follow-up plans are for dealing with dead and dying standing timber that's just a big fire hazard
Right.
waiting to kick back off. And it's just like after a hurricane, what do you do with all that stuff that's blown down? But in this case, I think it catches on fire easier, perhaps, depending on the nature of the fire and how it starts out.
There's, for stands that are affected, this Lockaloosa fire is by far the largest. That's district affected stands. That State Road 26 also, our local land managers as well as our forester will be going out and evaluating for salvage operations, because we had a history of that in 2006, where we conducted a lot of salvage operations after that series of wildfires, and also after obviously 1998, where so that absolutely salvage operations is in our toolbox in evaluating how the extent of the damage, and then obviously replanting after that, and also it's a lot of heavy equipment out there. So another thing that's our priority is fire line rehab. I mean, you get these large fire breaks. We've had contracts before where you're getting excavators that are essentially just kind of folding it back in and reworking it to level. So those are definitely priorities. We're not just fires out.
Oh, I knew.
No, yeah,
well, I knew
absolutely.
you had something
Yeah,
going on.
yeah,
but
absolutely.
Yeah, I suspect, though, that there's going to be a lot of salvage timber out on the market pretty soon, if
I
not
know.
already, which may make it a little harder for you to, well, it's a little premature right now. You're still dealing with the fires, but, yeah, you may have to think creatively or,
There's
figure
good-
out other alternatives.
We have good relationships with in-woods chipping crews to where if there's not necessarily a small amount of revenue, at the very least it's a revenue neutral, to where we're getting that hazard off the land, and also preparing it for replanting. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
And we don't need to be obsessed with revenue neutral versus, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
on
Yeah.
this, you just want to get the stuff,
Yeah,
get the stuff off so it's not fuel for greater dangers down the road. That's where the big problems happen. That's part of what we do is land manage, and this is part of land management.
yeah, absolutely, sir.
The other question I have was on fire, and if you alluded to this or mentioned this and I missed it, I apologize, but what exactly is the water management, these individuals that you're describing that are involved, what are they doing?
So a lot of times they're operating either the dozer plow units, like the medium dozers that we have that have essentially a large moldboard plow. It's in that picture, actually, the implement that's behind the bulldozer. So we have technicians that operate those.
And that's our equipment as well?
That one in particular is a Florida Forest Service one, but it's exactly the same. We have 6 in our fleet.
Right.
So they fall in kind of within the Florida Forest Service crews. We had on the Mondex fire, we had 2. On that one, we had, I believe, just the local one. And also same thing with the railroad fire. There were 2 units that we had out there at any given time. Others run what we call Type 6 brush trucks. They're 300-gallon. It looks like a pickup truck with like a utility body on that. They run that. And we also have staff that are qualified for leadership positions, such as task force leader, strike team leader. So where they're in charge of a group of equipment. If it's a strike team, it's 3 pieces of the same type of equipment. The task force is various pieces of equipment. So it varies from spraying water, running a piece of equipment, to leadership as well.
And leadership also including, I assume, providing input on what's on the ground in our district lands in terms of what has happened, to assist them in their strategies.
Exactly. And that came very much into play for this one, where the local land manager and the program coordinator were able to highly suggest the strategic burnout operation.
Yeah, you need to do this.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, we'll continue to deal with this emerging and continuing, not emerging here, it's here, this threat, and just hope that rain comes to assist in our human efforts to protect property and life.
Thank you all.
Recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Clay Coursey, the Director of Division of Water Supply Planning and Assessment here at the district. And probably this is no surprise what you're seeing here based on some of the information that Tim alluded to early on in his presentation. Similar to last month, the left is the rainfall graphic with the county totals that was presented to the board last month. And on the right, you'll see totals that have been updated through Sunday of this week. So you can see now that we've had a little bit of degradation in Bradford, where we're below 30 inches of rainfall there. Then you can see that Duval and Nassau have fallen below 35 inches of rainfall, which is another one of our drought indicators here. Everyone good on the rainfall graphic there? This has had some pretty substantial effects on our upper Florida and aquifer groundwater levels. Once again, on the left, this is what was presented at the April board meeting. Then our upper Florida and aquifer groundwater levels that have been updated through Sunday. You can see we have a number of areas in our district now, particularly in the northern portion of the district, with substantial area below the 10th percentile in our groundwater levels, meaning that over 90% of the time we'd be expecting the water levels to be higher than they currently are. So what does all this mean? Looking at our drought indicator from our water shortage plan, we now are meeting the levels in a number of areas of the district for an extreme phase 3 water shortage, with those levels being below the 10th percentile for more than 4 weeks on our groundwater, then the duration on our rainfall being below the 35 inches for more than 4 weeks. So yesterday, our executive director, Mike Register, issued a phase 3 extreme water shortage for those areas which were already covered in the North Florida planning area, which had Marion County included. We had some very low groundwater levels below the 10th percentile in Lake County as well. So Lake County was added to that water shortage. The big thing here that we're really stressing is on landscape irrigation. That's going to remain at 1 day a week. So now in Lake County, they're going to be limited to 1 day a week on landscape irrigation. You can see here on the screen, we're also limiting the number of hours that landscape irrigation can occur, hoping that we can get some more compliance with some of the folks that maybe have not taken the time to reset their timer to 1 day a week. Go ahead and reset that timer and also reduce your hours where you're not going to be irrigating at times where we have more evapotranspiration occurring. The other notable thing that's added here is on planting of new landscapes. We've gone to a reduced watering schedule for any new landscapes that would be planted during this time period, where they're not going to be able to water every day for 60 days. They'll have to do every day for 15 days, and they can do 3 days for the next 30-day periods, and they get 2 days for the final 15 days of the growing period. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
All right. So what's the trigger for phase 4?
So if we look at phase 4, that's the very bottom line on here. Be looking at the rainfall would be below that 24-inch mark, which we're not necessarily really close to. The thing that would really be triggering us is the groundwater levels at the 10th percentile for greater than 8 weeks. So if we're continuing to walk through this. That'll obviously be some discussions that that Mike will be having with you on where we're looking at and making sure the board's privy to what's going on.
Okay. At this point, I want to talk to the board a little bit to make sure that we're consistent with what the board would like to see happen. If you recall, we gave the executive director authority to go to phase 3, and then we would have board meetings if we were ever to go to phase 4, even if it wasn't in regularly scheduled order, right? Mike contacted me at the end of last week and wanted to know if he should wait to move to phase 3 until today. I said no, because the board said you have that authority, and it sounds like it's reasonable to do so. And we'll talk about it here, but I just want to make sure, A, you're comfortable with that, because it was consistent with prior board action. And do y'all want to continue proceeding as we're proceeding, which is we won't have any special meetings on this matter unless we go to phase 4. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
So if we go to phase 4, we'll have some type of phone meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how we left it last time.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood.
And I just want to make sure that's where we are. And I also wanted to tell you what happened when we went to phase 3. And I just went ahead and said, go ahead and exercise your authority, because the science is what it is. And it did not appear to have any immediate effects on people's regulatory effects, although it's got a little bit on golf courses and stuff like that, which is fine. They should be, and others. But unless the board says otherwise, we'll just continue under current protocols, which is we're in phase 3 now, and Mike can move that back to phase 2 if the science dictates. But if we go to phase 4, we'll have a board meeting. Does that sound good? Yep. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. Is it true that if we go to phase 4, the board has to all learn various tribes of Indian rain dances, and we have to dance at the same time before we go to phase 4?
That's a little known fact. But yes, that actually is listed in our board rules. But those board rules.
I'd like to go Cherokee.
Well, actually, I'm the Cherokee, because that was when I was in Indian Guides, that was my tribe. So you're got to pick another one. I'm sorry.
So,
Timaquan.
rank has its privilege.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I do have a question.
Yes, you're recognized, Ryan.
How do we get the word out, so to speak? Because I think there's a lot of people in my community that don't understand what the proposed requirements are. I think they're good people. I think they want to do right by it, but they just don't know.
That's a very good point, Mr. Atwood, and it's one of the most challenging things in this day and age we live, where people consume media in a different way than they did 20 years ago, right? Where it used to be that people watch the news and you can maybe have commercials and things that people saw, where now people are getting their news in different ways. So we're working with our communications team specifically on this extreme phase 3, where we can target specific areas on social media and ramp that up in a way that we haven't necessarily done under the severe water shortage, to try and help get the word out. And, we are certainly open to any ideas that anyone may have on other media outlets or ways to get the communication out there where people know.
That's a great point, Ryan. What's interesting is, my wife and I consume media probably a little more traditionally than the average American. And if you look at some of those traditional media outlets, there is a lot of coverage of this, like in my local news, and it's almost the lead story. Like our action we took last time was kind of the lead story on a lot of local news. And but not many people watch that anymore. And traditional newspapers obviously are all digital for the most part now, and not many people utilize that either. although it shows up on that. So I think that, you know, it probably makes sense for our communications team to talk to, and I would recommend this. I was going to say this in my comments, but you brought it up, and I think it's a good as time as any, is, you know, there's communication strategies that these very sophisticated political operations use now, and other organizations, and I think it's probably time for us to do that. You got to be careful with that tool. You know, we got to make, you know, we're going to have very high standards, and they have to be in certain situations, and we're not trying to sell anybody on anything. We're just telling them using you know, those engagement opportunities for just straight up factual information about stuff that's happening when property and life are at issue, right? So I think we probably need to start exploring that a little more aggressively. Yeah, of course, I'm sorry.
No problem. When we're approving consumptive use permits, is there anything we can put in any of the language that requires some of our public water utilities to also help communicate, or are we doing that already? When we go to different phases, or what our watering plans are?
That's part of what happens whenever we start talking about water shortages, working with our local units of government and local utilities as well. Our team's been in constant communication with them, so they're helping to get the word out about this as well. And you'll see on their website and their social media as well information about the water shortage.
What's interesting is they're having the same issues that these local governments and utilities are having the same issues that Ryan was talking about, that we just had the discussion about. You know, they're limited in their ability to reach people in this new media world because they're sort of going, you know, they're analog and we're in a digital time in terms of communication. And so they're dealing with the same things that we are in terms of reaching people. But again, you know, you have to be very sensitive about these things because people are funny about information they receive now. And so it's, you know, like when governments try to over communicate now, this is just an aside, but I'll just tell you because I see this with some in my professional life. When governments over communicate with people, people get like, what are you trying to trick me into something? You know, you're trying to, you know, use this for politics, and all. We're not. We're trying to save people's lives and property, but you know, there's just a lot of distrust.
That was the conclusion of my presentation, Mr. Chair.
I just think we probably ought to have some thresholds for types of information that I would like to have this as an agenda item. Thresholds for types of information that we communicate in a certain way, and then describe what that certain way is, which is more aggressive. You know, and I think we need to start reaching people directly a little more on social media, and there's ways you can do that, but you know, we have a very modest communications budget. I mean, we have cut that significantly. We're very great stewards of taxpayer dollars. And, you know, I like some of the things that we're doing in terms of advertising water conservation. I think they've been effective. You know, what we're doing with some of the stuff in the Jacksonville area is great. But, you know, I would like to be more intentional about some of these. This is, to me, I'm glad Ryan brought it up because this is, I think, exposed a blind spot in our relationship with the public, and it's through no one's fault. It's just we're communicating like we always have, and people aren't receiving it like they always have. What we've done has been very effective. Like, I see it on the news all the time. But I'm not the average Floridian right now in terms of how I receive that type of information, you know?
I wonder if we could work with the Turnpike and the I-95 corridor and I-75 and ask if we could flash a message on their electronic signage if they're not that busy.
They do in my area.
Yeah, I've seen it in South Florida, but I've never seen it up here where they say you're entering a drought area or extreme drought area. Maybe the press, I mean, our media staff has already done that, but when I get up in this part, I've never noticed it coming up I-95, and I think I travel further than anybody on I-95 of this group. So I see a lot of those signs I've never noted about droughts.
In Clay and Duval, they are doing that.
Good.
On the signs for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I think you're exactly right. I think they're doing it because the county has contacted Duval and Clay counties because they have initiated burn bans.
Yep.
Right? I think we should take the lead on that point.
Yeah.
And include that, if we could include that in our strategies right now, and then include it in our overall discussion point and items when we have this agenda item.
Yeah, 1.8 million people ride just the Turnpike system every day, just every day. So it's a lot of impressions and a lot of people seeing what we need them to see.
Exactly. And, you know, and you got to be like, burn ban is good, you know, like get that across people. But then I think there's specific bits of information that, and this is why you have communication experts about watering. Using that, you know, you can explain the watering rule in 7 words. I don't have those 7 words off the top of my head, but you can, you know, and people who are expert on that can do that. And just if you repeat that 3 or 4 times, and I guess if people don't follow the rules, they're just not going to follow the rules. And in certain jurisdictions, there's things you can do about that if it gets out of control. But, you know, I think that's a great idea.
The freeze event, because everyone's replanting their landscape, at least in my area, because of the severe freeze.
Yeah.
You know, it's adding to like this watering situation. Anyway, just something to think about.
Yeah, it's true. That is so true.
Yeah, it really is true. And I also think that, you know, in the bigger strategy over time is, you know, and I fight this all the time. I don't know if y'all do too. It probably goes back to more to my elected life, but you know, there's this idea that that we aren't responsible as residents for water issues, and that it's just the government being sort of a nanny state telling us to do this and that. And you know, the real problem is that industrial user over there, or that you know, in the lakes, they're always blaming the what's that, the sand mine, you know, which I'm not saying that didn't have anything to do with it, but at the end of the day, the problem is not the sand mine, it's all of us, right? And so I think over time we need to in our messaging make people understand that no, when we talk about this, the utility service is all of us. So whenever we have a consumptive use permit with JEA or with Clay Utility or whatever, that's you. They represent you. It's not some amorphous bad guy and you're immune individuals from you know, contributing to the situation. The reason we're in this situation is we are approaching 25 million people in a state that, you know, not too long ago had under 10. That's why we are dealing with this situation. And it doesn't mean that we don't hold commercial, industrials, and ag. We don't hold their feet to the fire. Of course we do. But if you just look at any statistic about water usage, it's us that are driving this. Us, I mean, as the collective, individual people who own their lawns and own their businesses and water them and all that kind of stuff, and use it for, you know, all the things we use water for, which is, we should, and that's great. healthy. All right.
Thank you.
Well, we spent a lot of time on that, but this is the issue of the day. We should. Appropriate. Does anybody else have any other comments on this productive conversation that we've had? All right. We're going to move to item 3, consent agenda. These are items 9 through 20. Do any board members wish to pull any of items 9 through 20 for independent discussion? Hearing no one, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? We have a motion and a second to approve items 9 through 20, which is the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Item 4 is a consumptive use permit, and Mr. Herbst will make the presentation on that matter. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and governing board members. My name is Darren Herbst. I'm the Water Use Regulation Bureau Chief, and I get the envious position of asking you to consider 2 consumptive use permits following Clay's water shortage order discussion. Just a side note, how the consumptive use permits are related to the water shortage orders. Consumptive use permits are typically evaluated based on long-term water level, rainfall trends. The water shortage orders provide that extra tool for the districts to be able to get through these shorter-term lack in rainfall events. And, as discussed, it puts some of the burden on the permittees and the homeowners. Let's see. So the first permit up for consideration today is the J.R. Kelly Generating Station. This is CUP number 11374-5. And let's see. There we go. As you know, the district is divided into smaller areas to focus on our core missions of water supply, water quality, flood protection, and natural systems. J.R. Kelly Generating Station is located in Alachua County, which is within the North Florida Regional Water Supply Planning Region. This permit is a renewal of an existing power generating permit with a permit duration of 20 years. The requested quantity is an increase from 0.693 million gallons per day to 0.871 million gallons per day. And these quantities are entirely from the upper Florida aquifer. The increase is the result of the growing electrical generation demands needed on the electrical grid, and the groundwater is exclusively used for the cooling towers. The permit conditions in part require the permittee to implement the water conservation plan, which includes recirculation of the cooling tower water as much as possible and no irrigation on the facility. They also need to report pumpage to the district. They need to adhere to the future minimum flows and levels that may be set and submit a 10-year compliance report to demonstrate that the future water demand is necessary moving forward. This slide provides a requested action, which is to approve the renewal of the J.R. Kelly Generating Station for the requested 0.871 million gallons per day. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions on this CUP that is before us? Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion? Is there any public comment? All right, 1 second. Again, this is a perfect example of, everybody uses this electrical power. This is us using this because there's more people there and they need more capacity for generating power. GRU does. All right. Is there a motion to approve it? All right, we have a motion and a
Move for
second.
approval, Sheriff.
thank you for that. We have an existing motion and second before you spoke, Mr. House, but if you could hold that one potentially for after a discussion of the next one, that would be great. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I thought this was a reasonable request on that, and it was well. It was a responsible approach to the matter. Item 5, we have our second one. You're recognized.
Thank you. The second permit is the Lake Utility Services, Inc., known as Lucy. This is CUP number 2700-32. Again, as I mentioned previously, the district is broken into smaller regional areas. The Lucy permit is located in southern, let me change slides. The Lucy permit is located in southern Lake County, which is within our Central Florida Regional Watering Supply Planning region. The permit is also located within the Central Florida Water Initiative area, which has distinct rules that are shared between Southwest Florida, South Florida, and the St. Johns River Water Management District. The permittee plans to continue, oops, sorry about that. My slides are, there we go. All right. The Lucy service area is in southern Lake County, south of the city of Claremont. This is a renewal of an existing public supply permit with a permit duration of 10 years. The requested quantity is approximately a 47.5% increase from 5.32 million gallons per day to 7.85 million gallons per day from a combined use from the upper Florida aquifer and the lower Florida aquifer. The increase is the result of a projected population increase of approximately 42%, from approximately 38,000 persons to approximately 54,900 persons by the end of the permit duration. The CFWI rules, as I mentioned, limit the upper Florida aquifer withdrawals to the utility to 2025 demands. Therefore, Lucy has committed to shift a large portion of their withdrawals from the upper Florida aquifer to the lower Florida aquifer, specifically increasing the proportion of withdrawals from the lower Florida aquifer from approximately 40% to 65%. Doing this, they would be able to reduce the withdrawals from the upper Florida aquifer and shift impacts from the upper Florida aquifer and the superficial aquifer within the Central Florida Water Initiative area.
Could you discuss what the, and Mike, I'm going to ask you perhaps to jump in on this, what the policy reasons are for shifting from the upper to the lower Florida aquifer? Why that is a good water policy?
So in the CFWI, the rules actually limit their withdrawals to from the upper Florida aquifer to their 2025 demand. So they have to look for alternative sources to meet any future demands through this permit duration.
And that's because the upper is stressed?
Is stressed out and reaching the limits at which we're starting to impact MFLs and other wetlands and other things within that area. And so they have to look for alternative water supply sources. One of those is the lower Floridan, which is further down below and has less of an impact by pumping from it than it does pumping from the upper Floridan. So some of the utilities have already taken advantage of moving some of their withdrawals to the lower Floridan. This is one of the things that this particular applicant is also choosing to do to meet their future demands while keeping their impacts at acceptable levels throughout the area.
All right, thank you.
As part of this conversion, Lucy will be adding 2 additional lower Florida aquifer wells to their consumptive use permit for a total maximum of 3 lower Florida aquifer wells within the service area by 2028. The utility is also committed to doing other alternative water supply strategies, including the one I just mentioned of moving the withdrawals to the lower Floridan. They will also be increasing reclaimed water for landscape irrigation in their fast-growing area of residential areas. The reclaimed water use for irrigation has increased from 0.218 million gallons per day in 2025 to 0.462 million gallons per day in 2025, or in 2015. It was 0.218 in 2015 and 0.462 in 2025, which is an increase of more than 100% of reclaimed water reuse. The total reclaimed water production in 2025 was 0.917 million gallons per day, of which 0.462 million gallons per day was used beneficially for irrigation, and 0.282 million gallons per day was used to recharge the aquifer through rapid infiltration basins. The permittee is continuing and proposing to continue the increased use of reclaimed water into the future, especially in their highly developing areas, by providing double lines for reclaimed water use in the future. The request and action for this permit is to provide or approve the permit for the renewal of 7.85 million gallons per day based on the population growth in the area and the alternative water supply activities they're proposing to do.
All right, is there any public comment?
No, sir.
Any questions?
Question.
Yes, you're recognized.
Maybe it's a request more than a question. I think it would be interesting to have a educational topic on reclaimed water and how that works in terms of our faster growing population areas. Because in terms of this CUP, I'm just curious, my questions tend to be more on the reclaim side of it, just in terms of as they're increasing water uses, as the population of that area increases, how is that captured? And that's probably just my ignorance, not understanding that process. I just think it'd be a good topic for us one day in the future.
Yeah, that, then we could get into sort of SB 64 and some of the requirements of that as well. If we could put a future agenda item for just a kind of a look in on alternative water supplies in general, with and reuse obviously is a big part of that. But I think it's important when you talk about reuse to put it in the context of other available strategies for alternative water supply and how that fits into our regulatory scheme that is imposed from Tallahassee. Yes.
You know, when you're in the CFWI, you know, remember we've approved the long range plan for CFWI, and a lot of these increases and how they're modifying their water uses are already in that general planning out through, what is it now, 2030. So, you know, we're in those long range plans are. This is consistent with the planning that goes on and how we allocate and move this water from no longer being used within the upper and lower Floridian, and the reuse. All of that's calculated into it, and the population increases have also been calculated in there. So, you know, some of these consumptive use permits, particularly for really supporting growth, have already been calculated into what we're looking for future needs. So this is all consistent with CFWI.
Well, I think one thing to point out is that, you know, sometimes you look at these and we're like, oh, we're just adding strain on the aquifer, whether it be the lower or the upper. The bigger picture is that if not for all the things that we're being aggressive about with regards to approaching things a different way, that number would be much higher and would be hitting the upper exclusively, right? So yes, it's more, but it's a lot less than it would be if we were still operating under the old paradigms that we're no longer operating under anymore. Just because it's more doesn't mean that we're not being creative. It just means that we're being creative and there's just that much demand. And so you've got to hit the aquifer, whether it be the lower or the lower in this case, because the demand is what it is. And our job is we don't zone. That's something that people get confused about too. We regulate when the need is presented through other decisions that have been made in other places. All right. So Any other questions at this point in time? Mr. House, do you have a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve, sir.
All right. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, item 6 is Indian River Lagoon. Ms. Simpson is going to discuss seagrass abundance.
Yes,
Good
good
morning.
morning. Good morning, Chair Bradley, as well as members of the governing board. My name is Lorraine Simpson, and I am the supervising environmental scientist for the coastal section in environmental sciences. And today I'm going to present on our 2025 mapping initiative. But before we start that, I just want to take a step back and set the stage with why we monitor seagrasses in the Indian River Lagoon. So seagrasses are a foundation species which act to connect other habitats together, and they provide a myriad of ecosystem services which are both directly and indirectly beneficial to humans. For example, about 75% of our commercially and recreationally important fishery species spend some portion of their life cycle within the seagrass habitat. And so because of its importance, as well as the fact that healthy seagrass is usually a dictator of good water quality, we have seagrass that has been incorporated into multiple management strategies. And this includes our 2002 swim plan, as well as our newly dropped basin management action plan. You'll also find this in the IRNEP Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan and their Science 2030 plan, as well as the Florida BMAPs, just to name a few. All of which require the monitoring of seagrass to push forward or to underpin adaptive management within the ecosystem. And so because of that, we began monitoring seagrasses in a two-tiered system back in the early 1990s. And so the first tier is a fine-scale understanding of seagrass growth and productivity within the system. So we have an amazing group of staff and WRI as well as ES who, coupled with volunteers from the organizations who you see their logos here on the right side of the screen, get in the water twice a year, once in the wintertime and once in the summertime, and take fine scale measurements of seagrass. So they're looking at the height of it, the percent cover, the occurrence, the shoot density. And there's many different ways that we look at this data, but one of the ways that we present this data to the public is through this figure. And so on the y-axis, you see transect length and cover, and on the x, you see year. So we started at this in 1994. And transect length in black, that's essentially how far out from the shoreline seagrass will extend. And so at the farther out, you're going to see seagrass going perpendicular to the shoreline is a proxy of water clarity, and so healthy seagrass. So over the last few years, we've started to see an uptick in our transect length within the Indian River Lagoon. We also look at percent cover of seagrass. And so when you actually put your head into the water, it really matters how much seagrass is there. So 30% seagrass coverage is going to perform more ecosystem services or a greater magnitude of services than that of 1% cover. And so we're just starting to see a little bit of uptick in our transect cover as well. And so while this is all very important, this is a very small snapshot of seagrass in the IRL. This is 100 different sites, only looked at twice a year. And so to really have a holistic understanding of what we're seeing here, we need to scale that with more of a large-scale monitoring program. And that's where our seagrass mapping comes in. So our seagrass mapping initiative also began in the early 1990s, and we do this biennially, so every 2 years. And the methodology that we've used has been consistent over our mapping years. The 2025 project was also done in consultation, within funding from South Florida Water Management District, as well as the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So in April of 2025, high-resolution aerial photographs were taken via plane with this UltraCam device, and then those pictures were then ground truth by our staff. Once those pictures were submitted and deemed to be acceptable, we began the actual interpretation in early 2026. So this photo interpretation was done by the contractor in consultation with our staff, and the maps were produced. So after 2 years of all of this hard work by multiple people, we have this 2025 seagrass map. Now, this map is difficult to make out because this is a long aerial extent. This is 156 miles. So we're looking at the map from Ponce Inlet down to Jupiter. So I'm going to break it up just for ease of visualization. From Palm Bay North, we have the orange box, and then Palm Bay South is the gray box. And so when looking at this map, anywhere you see green, that is where we have seagrass coverage right now. This does not denote the exact transect cover that we have. It just says that we have seagrass there, and that's where our Tier 1 monitoring comes into play. Now, this is a great visualization. We love producing this as well as sharing it with our partners and the public, but it's really the data from this that is the star of the show. And so from this figure, we are able to extract the amount of hectares of seagrass within the Indian River Lagoon, and then we produce this figure. So this is the figure that we've been sharing with the public and our stakeholders for many years. It's highly anticipated and really goes into a lot of the work that our other partners do. We have our transect length and cover. It's now on the secondary axis. So those line graphs have not changed at all. They're just swapped. And on our primary axis now we have seagrass extent, and those are in the green bars. 2025 data is now highlighted in the yellow bar. It will turn green eventually, but right now that's just to bring light to it because we are excited to present that there are 17 or just about 17,000 hectares of seagrass within the Indian River Lagoon at this time. That is a 72% increase from our 2023 mapping data. Now, while we're all very excited and cautiously optimistic about this increase in seagrass, I also want to bring to light that we are still 42% behind our historical coverage. And so that's the data that you see the bars from about 2007 and 2009. And so while we're seeing water quality improvement and increases in seagrass coverage, we still have a lot of work to be done to get back to that historical coverage. So more water quality restoration and wetland restoration. Furthermore, this increase in seagrass that we've seen in the Indian River Lagoon is not uniform throughout the entirety of it. And so if we break this down by sub-lagoon, we have differences in the increases. And so the IRL has 6 sublagoons, and these are essentially broken up based on hydrology of the system. In the north, we have Mosquito Lagoon, which is in the pink. The northern IRL is in blue. The Banana River Lagoon is in orange. Central IRL in red, South Central in yellow, and Southern in teal. And so I took that 17,000 hectares and I broke it up based on sublagoon from 2025, and those are the hashed bars. And then for comparison, we have the 2023 data in the solid bars. And so of the 6 sublagoons, we have increases in seagrass in 5 of them. Unfortunately, we saw a decline of seagrass in the central IRL. There actually is seagrass in the central IRL, but the scale is just too large to see it on this figure. You can see that we had large increases in the northern IRL and the Banana River Lagoon, some moderate increases in the South Central and Central, and then a small increase in the Mosquito Lagoon. And this is really just to highlight the fact that this is a very dynamic ecosystem and that each one of these sublagoons has its own constraints, its own drivers, and its own management needs, and that we shouldn't think of this as one entity, but a culmination of many. Furthermore, seagrass is not the only submerged aquatic vegetation within the Indian River Lagoon, and so we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the genus Caulerpa. So we have Caulerpa within the Indian River Lagoon. There's several different species, and this is a native green macroalgae. And it lives in the same niche as seagrass. So you will find it in areas where you don't find seagrass, or you will find it living or coexisting with seagrass in the same area. And because of this, it produces many of the same ecosystem services that seagrass does. One of the main ones is that it too is a primary producer, so it can uptake nutrients from the water column. And so because of that, we thought we should begin mapping Caulerpa species to have a more holistic understanding of what is happening in the Indian River Lagoon. And so this last year, we mapped the entirety of the IRL, and we found 4,574 hectares of Caulerpa macroalgae throughout the IRL. Here on the right, you have that same figure that I showed you earlier, but the Caulerpa is now overlaid in magenta. I'm going to break that up as I did earlier for ease of visualization. The one main thing to take away from this figure is that, well, we have seagrass and caulerpa living together in the same niche. There are areas where you see that there is no seagrass, but we have caulerpa species. And so while we are devoid of seagrass, that caulerpa species is filling that ecosystem service and it's providing that provisioning, especially that of nutrient retention. And so the hope is that as caulerpa is facilitated into these areas and growing, it's now stabilizing the sediments, which will then allow seagrass to move in and facilitate, and hopefully we can have a more diverse system with both macroalgae and our seagrass. And so when taken together, when we're talking about our rooted seagrass as well as our caulerpa species, we have just about 21,000 hectares of submerged aquatic vegetation within the Indian River Lagoon. And so I would like to take questions or if there's any comments, but before I do so, I wanted to just touch on this picture really quick. This picture was taken in June of 2024. This is a day that we were out monitoring our seagrass transects. This is the last transect of the day. We had gotten to the site, we had thrown our anchor. Everyone is kind of tired and we're moving through the motions of grabbing our slate and our mask and our snorkel. And someone thought to look up for a second. And when you looked up, you saw these beautiful patches of seagrass. So all of that dark area are beautiful, dense seagrass beds. We had not seen seagrass in this site since 2019. And it really got everyone excited because number one, recovery is possible when the water quality is there. But then number two, that we are given the opportunity to be able to monitor the seagrass so we can actually keep our finger on the pulse and know what's happening. If we didn't do that, we would have missed this beautiful recovery. So with that, are there any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Anecdotally, would you say that the increase we're seeing in the last couple of years is due to some of, in part or a lot on the projects that we're seeing going in as far as the septic to sewer, muck removal, and all these other type of projects in the area? So what we're seeing, my question is what we're seeing really because of the work that's been done, not just by us, but also by the counties and the state in these areas. Is that a fair statement?
So there's two parts to that. And unfortunately, one of the main parts is that we are in a drought. And so the last few years, we haven't had as much water moving off of the landscape into the estuary. This coupled with the fact that we have been doing a lot of work on water rediversion projects and wetland restoration is definitely helped driving this. And so we can see that when we're not having that water move off the landscape, we do see increases in seagrass. But to tease those apart right now and to actually show the data would be very difficult.
And just a follow-up question, is there anything that you could recommend that either accelerated or anything that we can do, particularly in the central Indian River Lagoon where we're not seeing as a robust recovery at this point? Is there any recommendations that moving forward over the next couple of years we could, really pay attention to?
I think we just keep our foot on the gas with our water quality improvement projects because over time, those will definitely help the system.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
But the guides in my area are reporting a resurgence in fish and the animals in the lagoon. And so to the hard work of the district and their hard work, it's rewarding to see because I fish it a lot and I've seen a decline in redfish and the trout and everything that's been in the lagoon snook, and I'm seeing more and more fish. So it's rewarding to see, and I just would love for this to continue because the Indian River Lagoon is invaluable, and your work is incredible. Your team's phenomenal. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Excellent, thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right. Appropriate lead into item number 7, which is consideration of the 2026 Indian River Lagoon Upper St. Johns River Basin Plan. You're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and governing board members. I am Melissa Dialosa, one of the strategic basin coordinators for the Indian River Lagoon and Upper St. Johns River Basin. Today, Mike McMonigal and I will be presenting the basin plan for the IRL and Upper St. Johns. The district is broken up into 4 strategic planning basins. As a strategic basin coordinator, I will work with staff, external partners to identify the resource priorities and implement projects to address those priorities. We have identified 3 regional priorities for the Indian River Lagoon: water quality, seagrass assessment, coastal wetland restoration, and resiliency. A key component of our IRL work is water quality monitoring and reporting. Our staff collect data, conduct modeling, and analyze the trends. Investing in IRL water quality projects is something that the district has been doing since the 1990s. We've completed and operate 4 diversion projects, which reduce flows to the IRL and redirect that water back to the St. Johns River. Collectively, these projects provide a regional benefit to IRL water quality. The Crane Creek M1 Flow Restoration Project was recently completed. The project redirects a portion of the flow from the M1 canal back to the St. Johns River. And it also provides a significant nutrient reduction to the Indian River Lagoon. The next big rediversion project is the C10 water management area. Design and permitting are currently underway. We are working to secure the remaining funding for construction and anticipate a 2029 start. C1 and C10 projects combined will redirect approximately 50% of the flows from the C1 canal back to the St. Johns River. The project will provide water quality improvements, alternative water supply benefits, wildlife habitat, and recreation opportunities. In 2024, the district completed an update to the 2017 IRL feasibility study. We selected our top 2 projects for water quality sampling. The results from the sampling will further guide our decision-making process. The MICO concept project is located in South Brevard County. It modifies the existing district-owned stormwater treatment facility to provide additional nutrient reduction to the lagoon. The Chain of Lakes concept project would enhance the existing Chain of Lakes stormwater treatment facility to provide additional nutrient reductions to the IRL. The site is located in Titusville and is jointly owned by the district and Brevard County. The second IRL priority is seagrass assessment. Lorraine presented exciting results indicating seagrass improvements. The seed bank assessment documents the distribution of seagrass seeds as well as the sediment conditions. The goal is to understand potential impacts to seagrass growth and the abundance of seeds. The results will help guide our restoration efforts. Coastal wetland restoration remains a long-standing priority for the district. Thousands of acres of habitat have been restored to date. In January, the governing board approved a new intergovernmental agreement to continue these efforts. The first agreement is in partnership with Indian River County, and a second agreement with Brevard County was approved today on the consent agenda. I will now hand it over to Mike, and he will present the Upper Basin. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I am Mike McMonagle, and I also serve as a Strategic Planning Basin Coordinator. I'll now review the resource priorities and objectives for the Upper Basin, which include water quality and environmental restoration. Water quality is a high priority for the Upper Basin. We will continue our efforts to reduce phosphorus levels by working with commercial fishermen to harvest invasive fish in the system. The district's modeling team is also incorporating biosolids impacts into the Upper Basin water quality model, as well as providing technical support for DEP's St. Johns River water quality model. Water quality monitoring is essential for evaluating water quality conditions, status, and trends. And since 2021, the district and our partners have been evaluating the potential water quality impacts from Class B biosolids applications. Phase 4 of this project is scheduled for completion next year, in 2027. Environmental restoration remains a priority for the Upper Basin to improve hydrology, water quality, and habitat conditions. Current efforts here include evaluating hydrologic conditions in the Blue Cypress Marsh Conservation Area and restoring water levels in the St. Johns Marsh Conservation Area. Restoration efforts also include monitoring snail kite habitat use and breeding, and using modeling to evaluate regulation schedules and updating restoration planning with current topographic data. Restoration efforts are further supported through using remote sensing to monitor plant communities throughout the entire Upper Basin. The district also works with our partners and lessees on collaborative land management planning. And invasive management and invasive vegetation control remains critical for protecting our water resources, our native habitat, as well as protecting our flood protection infrastructure. I'd like to highlight the planning process and the importance of public participation and input as part of this process. Our basin plans help to guide development of the district's annual strategic plan and eventually individual division work plans. As part of the basin plan development process, the district held a public meeting on February 12th of this year to present the Indian River Lagoon Upper St. Johns River Basin Plan. That meeting drew 81 in-person and virtual attendees. And as you can see from this slide, we had a nice diversity of interested stakeholders attend the meeting as well. Following that February public meeting, partners also provided additional feedback to us during a 3-week public comment period. Comments included support for septic to sewer initiatives and concerns regarding water quality trends in both the Indian River Lagoon and the Upper Basin. And that brings us back to the recommendation before you today. And Melissa and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Got a question for you. You talked about modeling some of the biosolids, how is that done? Like, is that everybody who's putting it out on their property is being recorded and that's getting input into the model, or how does that done?
Modeling it's primarily looking at incorporating the impacts directly associated with the phosphorus levels from those biosolids and making sure that those impact from those applications are being incorporated into that water quality model.
And that's like the number of applications per acre, or
Based on the information generated from the permits.
I could be a little help. We also have water quality monitoring stations, so we are able to monitor that over time. So to see the impact from any of that that is in the soil and moves through the groundwater or on the surface. So we have extensive water quality monitoring stations within the upper basin. So a lot of that data is then also taken and put into the model.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, can the upper basin use more water?
Yes, and certainly in spots we can, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we're looking at is ways that we can improve some of the hydrologic conditions in certain parts of the marsh out there. We're drier than we really should be, and try to improve that habitat in those areas.
Yeah, I ride those levees a lot, and there's a whole lot of pepper bushes and palm trees growing where there should be acres and millions of gallons of water sitting there. We have plenty capacity, but no water. Yeah, I've been a big advocate of reconnecting the districts, and it just hasn't happened. And just 500 yards south of our line, millions of gallons of water go to Tide every day, down the C-25, every day. If you go to the weir before it enters the Indian River Lagoon, where we don't want the water, it flows like a river. And yet we need that water in the upper basin. It's just, I've pushed and pushed, and I've given up, but I tried forever for the last 20 years to reconnect the two districts, but politically it just hasn't happened. And I wish it had, because it's where the water we used to have. That water that's in St. Lucie County used to come this way. If you look at it in a stereoscope of the tree lines and where the water flowed, it flowed here to the St. John's, not to the Indian River Lagoon. So it would have been a heck of a win-win for the Indian River Lagoon and for the upper basin if we were politically capable of reconnecting the districts. But it's not going to happen because homes are being built there right where it needs to be now, and it's a tragedy. But it should have happened, and we would have cured two ills that have long hurt our water needs in this state. So I just had to say that because it's so important, that water, that we need to save every gallon of water this state has. Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, I think if I could just continue on that point, just wanted to also highlight the fact that, the regulation schedules that we currently have in the Upper Basin Federal Project, those regulation schedules have been in place for many decades now. And so we're taking a fresh look at those, trying to figure out where we can optimize, the hydrology in certain parts of the Upper Basin Project to do that very thing. So,
yeah, I've been involved with that since day one, going back with Henry Dean and Charlie Ty, and where to hold the water, and where we plan to hold the water, there's no water. You could sit in that levee and hit a driver 9-iron and not touch water, not touch any water. But you're raising trash trees out there, and so we have a world-class capacity there that's not holding the water it should. And I hope that you're successful in bringing more water in, because we sure need it.
Thank you. You're recognized.
But, to Doug's point, and you are correct, Doug. I mean, I agree with you as well, but I am encouraged by seeing the completion of the C1 helps a lot, and now we've got the C10 in this current plan that we're talking about, and the C10 is going to, once again, help move a lot of that water that doesn't need to go to the Indian River Lagoon that currently is back to the, the upper St. Johns. And again, there's a need for even more projects and more of these projects to be accelerated as funding is available to do that. Anyway, I'm excited about seeing the C10 come to fruition in the next several years as well. So, and if we can find another C1 and a C10 type projects to continue to do that with, would be encouraging. But all of these things go back to that seagrass we were talking about and encouraging that seagrass. So, I support this plan. I think we're moving all in the right direction, and particularly with the action requested today.
Second.
Well, before we get to motions, I think we have some public comment.
Yes, sir.
And there may be some other board members that have questions, but are there any other board members that have questions? And then we're going to go to public comment. All right, public comment.
Yes, sir. The first commenter is Niyati Shah. She's the Upper Basin Coordinator for the St. Johns River Keeper.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Nethi. I'm the Headwaters Watershed Specialist at the St. Johns River Keeper. Thank you to the district and board for the opportunity to speak today. The Upper St. Johns River is facing a mounting water quality crisis. And while the current basin plan identifies many key threats, it lacks the enforcement, monitoring, and restoration infrastructure needed to address them effectively. So first, the Upper Basin still lacks a BMAP, despite contributing about 70% of downstream nutrient loading. Unlike the middle and lower basins, there's still no clear reduction schedule and no implementation timeline. While we recognize VMAPs are under DEP's jurisdiction, we want the district to underscore the urgency of establishing a BMAP for the Upper Basin. Second, current water quality targets are outdated. Sewage sludge, as we know as biosolids, dumping in western tributaries contribute the highest nutrient loads in the Upper Basin. Lake Washington, Melbourne's drinking water source, experienced a 44% jump in phosphorus loading between 2016 and 2020. So we're requesting updates to the 2016 TMDL using current data and the inclusion of Blue Cypress Lake into pollution reduction goals. While nutrient pollution modeling is underway, there's still no clear pathway from modeling to regulation. Biosolids-driven phosphorus and PFAS contamination are deeply serious concerns, and while the legislator has banned land application of Class B biosolids by 2028, we're concerned about increased production of Class AA, and we anticipate the creation of regulatory guardrails through rulemaking thanks to recent legislation. We're calling for stronger oversight, including upstream and downstream monitoring for phosphorus and PFAS, treatment of facilities in the western tributaries, and support for a polluter pays framework for utilities exporting biosolids onto our riverbanks. We're calling for expanded monitoring stations, particularly in the biosolids impaired watersheds and water management areas receiving stormwater diverted from the lagoon back into the Upper Basin. There's also a major data gap in the assessment of SAV in the Upper Basin. We admire the lagoon's robust seagrass monitoring program, but the Upper Basin lacks a comparable strategy, despite reports from local fishermen of disappearing SAV. Since SAV, as we know, is the clearest indicators of a healthy ecosystem, we're asking for a dedicated Upper Basin strategy that includes seed bank analysis, biennial monitoring, herbicide impact assessments, restoration, and public access to SAV data. Based on the state of the Upper St. Johns, it is imperative that the district advocates for dedicated funding and resources that addresses the decline in our river's headwaters. Funding should align with nutrient reduction priorities, remediation from the dumping of sewage sludge, also known as biosolids, and eventually BMAP implementation. Our request is straightforward. We need a more transparent, enforceable, science-driven restoration framework for the Upper Basin that matches the scale of the ecological challenges that are unfolding in our backyards. Since our mission is to defend and protect the St. Johns, we welcome opportunities to strengthen our partnership with the district to achieve our shared goals for clean, safe, and healthy river. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next commenter, Lisa Reineman with St. Johns River Keeper.
Good morning, everyone. Lisa Reineman, St. John's River Keeper, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak today to this plan. And also want to thank all of the staff at the Water Management District for all their work they put into this and the multiple times they met with us in NEOT to make sure that we were talking through some of the concerns that she just outlined. I also want to thank them for timing the release of this plan for NEOT's first day. It was the first meeting as she came in as our first full-time Headwater specialist, and her background is public health as well as statistics with a specialty in understanding the nexus between environmental damage and degradation and public health. So we're real excited about bringing her on at this time. She's also creating a citizen oversight committee with our partners in the Indian River Lagoon and other organizations in the upper basin of the St. Johns. So we continue to look forward to working closely with the staff to address some of the issues that we think are missing in this plan. By having the Indian River Lagoon and the Upper Basin all in one strategic plan, it really shows the juxtaposition of how many resources and investments going into the lagoon, while we're not seeing the same investment in the Upper Basin. While we continue to applaud the restoration of the Upper Basin that was overseen by this organization and won international awards, we're seeing a significant degradation in the Upper Basin and the headwaters of the St. Johns, which is undermining the river health and public health downstream. And so while we're seeing improvement in biosolids, the degradation that has been done, the legacy pollution is going to take serious understanding, investigation, and investment to undo that harm as we phase out of the land disposal of Class B biosolids. What we also need to see is when we're having drinking water downstream, we're seeing more harmful algal blooms. It's causing more significant harm. And then just like the seagrass issue in the Indian River Lagoon is a problem, we've seen almost a 100, not 100% loss, but nearly a total loss of submerged aquatic vegetation or eelgrass throughout the St. Johns River in the upper, middle, and the lower St. Johns. We've been surveying SAV loss in the lower St. Johns for the last 4 years, the Water Management District for the last 20 years. We're working, combining that data in the lower St. Johns, but sadly we don't have that same level of monitoring in the upper or the middle basins, despite numerous phone calls and emails about loss from fishermen, because just like in the lagoon, as we know, when we lose these underwater grasses, we also lose these important commercial and recreational fisheries. So we ask that we work together to continue to get more data on both the degradation of water quality in the upper St. Johns, what that impacts are have downstream, and what we can do about these missing submerged grasses as we learn more about the loss in the upper and the middle basins. But thank you all for your time today. Thank you all the staff for this important conversation. We look forward to continue to working with you all.
Thank you both for your comments. All right, now we're in proper posture to consider a motion, and I believe, Mr. Treasurer, you have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve, and do we have a second? Oh, that's yours.
Oh, go ahead.
I was looking for Doug. He loves Lagoon as much as I do. So.
Yeah, no, that's you're natural. Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. At some point, I look forward to once all the bills have been sent to the governor and he signs them all and we have a full picture between policy and budget as to what this legislative session produced or didn't. I look forward to having a dedicated agenda item to biosolids. So if we could put that like in August. Because there's some major movement on that front this year to stop sort of the degrading of our waterways through that activity that we've discussed several times here. I hope the governor finishes the job and signs. I have no thought that he wouldn't, to be honest. That's some exciting news to report on what the legislature has done. And then we can sort of wrap that into how we deal with some of the legacy costs going forward that have been produced by that ill-advised public policy that is finally being addressed. So we'll stay tuned on that and look to do it in August if that works. All right, With that, any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. All right, item 8 is the regular public comments.
There are none today.
Okay. Items 9 through 20 were approved previously under the consent agenda, so we'll go to item 21, which is our law firm. Ms. Preston?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have updates on 5 cases today. The first 3 are administrative petitions that are each related to an environmental resource permit application. The first is Edward and Anna Cece versus Cedar Island Homeowners Association and the district. This is related to an application to modify a permit authorizing a stormwater management system in Flagler County. The administrative law judge has set a hearing in this case, and it will actually be here at district headquarters from July 29th to July 31st. The next case is Geraldine Clinton versus Deering Park 1 LLC, Farmington Deering Park LLC, and the district. This was related to an application to modify a permit authorizing conceptual approval of a stormwater management system in Volusia County. It was dismissed with prejudice on April 24th after the petitioner did not file an amended petition. The last administrative petition to update is Joseph Elder versus Finley Woods Community Development District and the Water Management District. This is related to an application to modify a permit authorizing a stormwater management system in Alachua County. In this case, the applicant withdrew the application. While they do plan to submit a new application for a modification at some point in the near future, because the application is withdrawn, the petition file is then closed. The next 2 updates are 2 appellate cases that have been resolved via favorable rulings to the district and the state. Both were per curiam affirmed, which means that the court did not issue a written opinion. The first is the Florida Springs Council versus the Department of Environmental Protection and others. This is from the Florida First District Court of Appeal. The court's order affirms the administrative law judge order that upheld the department's outstanding Florida Springs rule. And the petitioners are seeking a written opinion, but the court has not ruled on that. And just as a refresher, both the St. John's and Southwest Florida Water Management Districts had participated in this rule challenge in support of the department because the result of the case will impact whether the district will apply those rules to our consumptive uses of water that may impact an outstanding Florida spring or spring run within our district. The last case is another per curiam affirmance, an independent construction of the Treasure Coast LLC versus several other parties, including the district. This is out of a ruling from 2024. It was foreclosure of a construction lien involving property that was actually encumbered by a district regulatory conservation easement. The 5th District Court of Appeal affirmed the trial court's dismissal of any of the claims against the district for procedural reasons. And this concludes my report.
Great. Any questions for Ms. Preston? All right, we're going to now move to item 22, which is governing board comments. First of all, I'll go to those who are attending from a different place. Does anybody on the telephone have any comments?
No comments from me. Thank you.
No comments from me, Mr. Chair.
No comments.
All right, we'll bring it back to the dais. Anybody wish to share? Share time, guys. Share time. All right. Great. We're going to move to item 23, Executive Director's Report and Calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Before I get started on this, you heard a lot from Chris Kinslow on our response to the fires throughout our district. And I just wanted to say a special thank you out to those staff that on top of their normal responsibilities take on that responsibility of responding to these fires, and their dedication is definitely appreciated not only by us, but by the other agencies and by the public. So a special thank you to them. If we could go to the first one there. We welcome what we hope to be is the next generation of district staff for a behind-the-scenes look at how we protect our water resources, restore natural systems, and manage our lands for conservation with our Take Your Child to Work Day this year. Special thanks to the Employee Engagement Committee for really working hard to host that in Palatka and in our Palm Bay Service Center. Attendees explored our work through demonstrations and hands-on activities, as you can see there in the video. They learned about everything from prescribed fire to seagrasses and natural resource management and water conservation. And so hopefully we are inspiring the next generation of district staff to start here at the district in a few years. Next slide. Want to celebrate a couple of wins for our communication team. They recently earned 2 honors at the Florida Municipal Communicators Association Annual Conference. One for the Blue School grant efforts that expanded outreach into communities that have historically not received the grant funding. And also a second award recognized the social media post highlighting seasonal swamp sunflowers at Lake Jessup, showcasing natural resources through engaging content. Their work reflects a continued focus on connecting with broader audiences and supporting district programs through effective communications. Thanks. Ahead of the Atlantic hurricane season, the district hosted the Central Florida Coordination Meeting at the Palatka Service Center, bringing together key partners for hurricane preparedness. Participants included South Florida Water Management, the Army Corps of Engineers, National Weather Service, Florida Flood Hub, Florida Department of Transportation, and multiple counties and municipalities so that we can work on making sure that we have all the coordination pieces in place prior to the hurricane season starting. Thanks. And you saw and passed our Indian River Lagoon and Upper Basin plans. The district also hosted a public meeting on May 6th at the Palatka Service Center to provide an overview of the draft plan for the Ocklawaha River Basin. It outlines the same priorities and projects to improve water quality, support ongoing restoration efforts, and guide water resource management across the basin. Public input will help ensure the final plan reflects community needs, local knowledge, and regional priorities. The public comment period is open May 13th through June 3rd of this year, and then the feedback will inform final revisions before we bring it to the board for your approval. And as far as calendar goes, the district will be closed to commemorate Memorial Day on Monday, May 25th, and our next governing board meeting is scheduled for June 9th here at the district headquarters. This concludes my report.
All right, quick shout out to the communications team. Congratulations on the awards, and our comments earlier, our commentary on sort of the news dissemination as a whole, not anything directed at the quality of work that's being done here in the building. It's noticed. I think y'all are doing some really engaging and interesting content. I'm a social media guy, so I probably see it more than others. But anyway, keep up that good work, and I look forward to having a back and forth discussion about sort of these bigger, larger trends about getting some of this emergency information out to people going forward. All right, any other comments? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.